This is gonna hurt. It's time for the Suffering Podcast.
I've yet to meet the person that can do everything alone. From time to time, assistance is needed to help you through the sticky moments in life. Someone to lean on when choices are in short supply. Finding the right person is a task equally as monumental as the pain. Having so many poor choices to pick from leaves you frustrated, confused, and lost. Hoping that by luck, chance, or divine intervention, someone will arrive to help. There are moments in life where the right person was put in front of you at the right time. Someone who is caring and understanding, allowing you the room to heal, having the experience and knowledge to get you through the worst times in your life. I'm Kevin Donaldson here with Mike Failace, and welcome to the Suffering Podcast. If you're a fan of overcoming suffering and overcoming adversity, then we're for you, because that's what we do here and that's the stories we highlight. So do me a favor, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, don't forget to comment. Now you can join. Ring the bell so you can get notified of all of our new content, and follow us on all social media platforms so you can find out what we're up to. On tonight's episode of the Suffering Podcast, we welcome Dr. Eugene Stefanelli to discuss the suffering of the cop doc.
The Eugene Stefanelli.
So if you want to find out why this show is the way that it is, here's the guy.
Here's the genesis of our show.
This is the reason why we're here. Before we go any further, let's give a big shout out to our marquee sponsor. That's Toyota of Hackensack. We don't trust anybody, but we do trust Toyota of Hackensack. So do me a favor, go to toyotaofhackensack.com and let them find you a car. It's Dr. Eugene Stefanelli, podcast veteran. He's been on a long time ago, almost 2 years.
2 years, yeah. He's podcast veteran of 2 years.
But that day was a little hectic when you came in. But Doc said, thank you so much.
I enjoyed it.
Yeah, we sat on a flatbed trailer.
And it was about 10,000 degrees.
I almost put that same shirt on today, to be honest with you.
But that was a fun day. That was a fun day. You got to see kind of what we were all about.
Yeah, it was good.
The fruits of your labor from your children.
Doc's misfits.
You know what, Doc? We take questions from our audience every week. This week's social media question comes from Severed Phillip. Who is your go-to person? So, Doc, I'm sure there's times throughout your life you hear all this stuff, because Mike and I go through it now. We hear all this trauma, this suffering, and sometimes we need to just unload on somebody, but we need somebody we can trust. Do you have anybody like that?
I have a colleague.
So how do you do that?
I need to go for tune-ups as well, because if I'm going to be on top of my game, I have to make sure that there's nothing going askew with me. So yeah, I talk to him.
Plus, you have like several appointments a day too, right? So you're eating all of those feelings.
I average about 8 people a day.
Yeah, and how you got to have some serious. You're bearing the weight of a lot of different people, because you deal with some of the worst clientele on the planet. I mean, you'll never go out of business. Let's put it that way. You'll never be short of business dealing with mostly cops.
Yeah, he deals with the worst clientele.
We have 33,000 members in the PBA. I'm the doctor.
Yeah.
Okay.
The
now
doctor.
You know why I'm a little tilted once in a while. That's what part happens. You know, what are you going to do?
So the one thing you're going to find out about Dr. Eugene Stefanelli is if you think these medical professionals are all prim and proper, this is not the guy. This is not the clinical guy that you want to talk to. Brilliant, caring, loving, and all of the above. However, he is absolutely dented. Mike.
And he likes Ruts Hot hot dogs too, but we haven't gotten there in quite a while.
Well, I am dented. I have my own PTSD I deal with.
Yeah, and I want to get into that. I want to find out exactly, because nobody who helps as many people as you doesn't have some junk in the past. Mike, what do you think? Who's your go-to person?
You know what? You're going to hate this because I probably stole it. You are.
Yeah,
You're my go-to. You know, we've been through a lot together. You know, you were the first person I walked into when I went to group therapy. You know, like you've said, we've known each other for all of about 25 years, but really got to know each other, you know, a couple of years ago. And
almost 3.
And you know that, well, no, I'm talking about the start of when I first went to group.
No, yeah, well, group. Yeah. So you're talking 9 years ago.
It had to be 2014. I started the end of 2014, maybe early 2015.
Right.
But whenever you know more about me than most people do. You know my good days and my bad days, and we talk about it all the time. Me and Kevin talk constantly. If we don't talk for a couple of days, we know something's up.
Yeah, and I know I know you've had some issues lately.
Yeah.
And my heart bleeds, but you know, when you're as close to somebody as I am to Mike, I try to reserve my judgment. And listen, I'll step in front of a bullet for this guy. Mm-hmm. So that's what I try to do. When he's hurting, I'll try to run interference, because I'm not going to tell him what to do, because when somebody's venting out certain problems, you don't want to sit there, especially us. We're not medical professionals. You don't want to sit there and say, well, do this, and do this. It's not the right way to react. But for me to sit there and let me defer or deflect some of this shit coming your way, maybe it can help you out, make your day just a little bit easier. But unfortunately, he stole my answer too. That's what it is.
And that's why I said you're going to hate me.
Oh, I know it. I know it when I read the question. But you know, you make brothers in foxholes. So that's my theory on it. And when you've experienced similar trauma and you've gone through similar pain, you bond with people. And I don't know if I could do your job ever, because coming from my trauma and sharing that trauma with you, and you have your own stuff, there's a bond that's created. And with as many people as you see, it's got to be overwhelming. It's got to be overwhelming. So anyway, Severed Phillip, thank you so much for sending that one in. Keep sending in your questions. We will try to get them on the air. So Dr. Steph, we talk about you enough on this show.
The audience probably knows them already.
They know exactly who you are. That's
not good.
Well, half the people we bring in here have seen you in one form or fashion.
Okay.
And they all say the same thing.
Saw my picture in the post office on the wall.
Yeah. That was in Newark.
In a milk
60 years ago.
Saw it on the back of a milk carton too.
But they all say the same thing. So they'll come into your office and they'll say, you know, I got this going on and I got this going on. And you'll have that same answer that you gave me. It's because you fucked up. See? It's because you fucked up. That's what I wrote on my cup. But that's the beauty of you. You speak down to our level. And I don't know if that's a good thing. I'm sure you can go highbrow if you want to, but it doesn't get through to people like us.
That's the reason I work with police officers. I'm a kid who grew up on a street corner. I used to have a regular practice where I wore a shirt and tie and sat there, and, you know, people just bored me. It was, you know, there were marital stuff and women who were having problems with their boyfriends or husbands, whatever. So in 1995, I met Tony Wieners, who was with the Belleville Police Department. We had a doctor friend that introduced us together. So he asked me at the time if I was interested in working with police officers. I said, yeah, sure. I said, I've only had one or two, but he said, would you be interested in take care of the Belleville Police Department? And I said, yeah. So that was my intro to working with cops.
And I'm sure you obviously you found a lot of success in it, but you're a kid from the streets of Newark. So I imagine from all the stuff and all the conversations that we've had together, that if you've ever seen the show The Many Saints of Newark, I'm surprised they didn't have a character named Eugene Stefanelli in there somewhere.
Well, kind of my neighborhood was similar to A Bronx Tale.
I mean, you got the vowel at the end of your name, so you got that going for you.
I'm Sicilian. What are you going to do? It is what it is.
And you married an Irish person. What's the matter with you?
They opposites attract.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. So why don't you give our audience a little window into how you grew up?
I grew up, I actually was born in Newark on 10th Street, and then we moved uptown to 17th Street. So my dad was in World War II. My grandfather was a doctor. My dad was going to follow in his footsteps. And he was Eugene Stefanelli, after whom I was named, obviously. And when he was in college, they drafted him. He was going to go to medical school. Unfortunately, he ended up in the Pacific Theater, and they made him a infantry medic. So when he came home, he had very bad. I realized how bad it was as I got older, And once I started going to school and learning about PTSD, my father had terrible PTSD. He was physically and verbally abusive to both myself and my mother. He never, my father did nothing with me. Was very critical.
So I'm sure at the time you probably had a little bit of resentment towards your father, but as you got older and into your practice and knowing what you know now, is there any sympathy for him?
I watched my father die of cancer. And so after that, I forgave him. I don't like him. I still don't. But I did forgive him for what he did.
But you know now that there was a reason he was acting like that.
Yeah, he had PTSD, had bad PTSD.
But when you're young and you don't realize it, it had to be tough.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, I did very little with my father. It was always with my friends' fathers. I envied the way my friends' fathers reacted with their sons. But my father's brother, who was another Eugene, he really took me under his wing. I always went to him for advice, did all kinds, so he had a big impact on my life. He truly did.
Well, you need that one person in order to be your guiding star, whether it's your father or whether it's a coach or whatever it is. But you grew up in an era in Newark where the streets ran everybody.
Well, we were across the street. We used to hang in front of this drugstore, and across the street was Roseville Lounge, and that's where the old capos were. The old mafia guys were there. So we aspired to be them. That's what we wanted to be. Some of my friends became those guys. Then
some of his friends.
Yeah.
Well, they were buddies of mine. We slept in each other's houses. We hung out together. We did all kinds of things together, so it was different. Unfortunately, when I started working with law enforcement, I could no longer
associate
with them.
But they're not that far.
No.
So they're very close. The personalities are almost identical.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we...
and they keep their neighborhood safe.
Yeah, they did. The neighborhoods were safe. Back in the 60s and 50s, early 60s and mid to late 50s, young girls in the summer could walk on the streets at 12 o'clock at night and no one would ever say anything or try to do anything. It was well protected between the cops and the boys, and they worked together.
Right. And that made for a much safer neighborhood.
Oh,
just because your neighborhood was filled with what you would consider a bad element doesn't mean it's a bad neighborhood.
Well, we weren't bad elements.
Well, come on, you were a bad element. I already know this. But
he was. The guys across the street weren't a bad element. But the guys on his side of the street were bad elements.
I can't even tell you. There's certain things
there's certain things I could tell you, but I can't. I got to kill you.
I'm limited.
The statute of limitation was over 90 years ago.
But it was a good. You liked your neighborhood though, because you talk about it very fondly, and you
It's
talk
like family.
Yeah. And when you go through high school, where'd you go to high school?
Essex Catholic.
Essex Catholic, which probably
now defunct.
It probably closed down in 1937.
No, they were there in the early 80s. I know that because we played them in football.
I was in a very, very wealthy parish in Newark, St. Francis. There were a lot of people there that had money that contributed to the church.
But you have a whole community of well-to-do people who are trying to buy their way into heaven because of some of the stuff they do on the side.
Italian Catholics.
Yeah.
We had a lot of those.
Yeah.
So the Monsignor got up in the pulpit one Sunday and said, all the young men in the parish, the parish is going to pay for your tuition. Go to Essex Catholic.
Wow.
Yes.
That was nice.
So you know what happened. All the Italian Catholic kids on my corner, we all went to Essex Catholic.
No kidding.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, why wouldn't you?
Yeah, and they didn't. I wasn't allowed to go to public school.
Yeah.
Well, so you were
me both.
You were funded. I'm sure the Catholic Church didn't fund you. I'm sure you were funded by some guy with a valid end of his name.
Probably.
Yeah.
Uncle Vito.
But again, to the credit of that neighborhood, although these are seen as bad guys, they're still fathers. They're still coaches. We learned it. We had a woman in here. Her name was Angela Pisano. Her father was Larry Martin. Nobody's ever heard of Larry Martin. The only thing I could find on Larry Martin was he was indicted with Gyp DeCarlo in 1971 or something like that. Gyp DeCarlo of Jersey Boys fame. And but her father was a mobster who could navigate in and out of the 5 families in Newark with ease and work for them all because he was such a good earner. But he was, so the good gangsters are the ones you never heard of, is what I'm trying to get to that. But to her, it was just her father.
Just
you know, he went to softball games, he went to, went to the dances, took care of her, protected her, just like a father, but he ran gambling rings. Yeah. And he hung around all of them. But the reason he got out, you're going to like this one, is because he was friends with Lefty Ruggiero from Donnie Brasco fame.
Right.
And Lefty was hanging around this guy, Donnie, who he didn't trust. And he goes, things are getting weird. I'm getting out. And he got out. And he lived till 99 and passed away. And she just wrote a book about it. It's a great book. So as you matriculate, did you have a problem leaving the neighborhood? Because I know a lot of people who grew up there really didn't want to leave that area.
No, I didn't want to leave. You learn 2 things.
This show is sponsored by BetterHelp. You know, it's the holiday season. It's the most wonderful time of year, but it's not that way for everybody.
You know, sometimes the holidays bring up bad memories for people. Everybody has bad memories. You know, I lost my mom years ago, and the holidays are tough for me, and I went to therapy and talked to my therapist about it, and it really helped me through it.
I've benefited from therapy in so many different ways. It helps me get some of the really heavy stuff off of my chest so I can just move forward in life. So if you're thinking of giving therapy a shot, try BetterHelp.
It's completely online, it's convenient, and it's flexible.
So find your bright spot this season with BetterHelp. Go to BetterHelp.com/suffering for 10% off your first month.
It's BetterHelp, HELP.com/suffering.
Hanging on that corner with those people across the street. One was respect, and the other was loyalty. 2 very important things in life, actually.
One of the reasons you really took to the streets, I'm sure that was just a neighborhood thing anyway. Was it because of the way your father treated you? And you were out there like looking for acceptance? And
No, my mother saved my life.
yeah,
My mother saved my life. And then when I got up to a certain age, I just isolated my father.
How long did you go without talking to your father?
Oh, God, when I was in college.
Yeah. And you go away to, you told me the college, was it LaSalle?
Villanova.
That's it. Villanova. And what did you initially want to go? Did you always, I'm sure therapist wasn't your lifelong dream.
Initially, I wanted to be a pediatrician, believe it or not. My cousin was a pediatrician. My uncle was a pediatrician.
That's from hanging around the Catholic Church too much.
it's affinity for children.
But I couldn't get the money to go to medical school. So my cousin Arthur went, a friend of ours went, and they went, but I didn't have the money.
So as you're in college, young man,
Yep.
a Newark kid going out to Villanova.
Yeah.
And you had no idea because I used to wear my leather jacket, and I still had my hair swooped back with my brajol hanging down. But
He didn't stick out like a sore thumb.
And I met a friend. Another guy was from Long Branch, whose father was connected. So it just happened that way. And then a buddy of mine from high school, who was an All-American runner, Jerry Krumike. He kind of put Essex on the map. He was once the 3rd fastest man in the world.
Wow.
There was Paul. What was his name?
The guy who ran the 4-minute mile?
There was Paul Drayton. No, these guys were sprinters. I think 100, 220. I don't remember. Frank Budd, Paul Drayton, Jerry Krumike. That's how they used to finish.
So what did you find did you find a path when you were in college?
Drinking.
Yeah, pretty much.
Drinking. And what years are we talking about now?
1962 to 66.
62 to 66, you're in college. Mm-hmm. And wild times, a little bit more freedom.
Some I really can't talk about that. All I can tell you is toga parties. That's it.
Yeah.
So Animal House was real?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my.
Even at
respects.
Villanova.
In some respects, Villanova was known as a drinking school. Unfortunately.
Yeah, that's what the college I went to, Fairleigh. When I was a freshman there, it was like top 5 rated in Playboy as party school. I remember the kegs being outside of the dorms.
Yeah.
But then things changed when I think some kid
got hurt or killed or
died or something. From
alcohol
drinking too much.
poisoning.
How come you never heard that when you were going to college? Some kid, everybody gets drunk. Mm-hmm. But I don't know. Was that around? Because I always like to try to figure out what college is like in my parents' time. Because your parents will tell you, oh, I wasn't like that. But bullshit, you were like that. I've talked to enough, like Bob Gibson, the World War II vet we had in here. He was like that. He was like that, absolutely. They're in France on downtime, and he just smiled. And so, yeah, I always like this.
Stole a Mercedes.
And then, so you graduate with what kind of degree?
A bachelor. Yeah, bachelor in psychology.
Bachelor of psychology. What led you to psychology?
I found it interesting. I had a friend there that was his father was a psychiatrist. And we used to talk to him, and his father used to come, and just found an interest in it.
Yeah,
It's helping people. There's a philosopher, Voltaire, and I remember reading this statement that to help restore a human being back to health is as noble as to create. And I thought that was very powerful, because the only person that could create is our good Lord, our higher being. So I was always impressed with that. I'm an Aquarian too, and part of that is that we like to help people.
Yeah.
I enjoy helping people. I do. I always wanted to hit the lottery.
Yeah.
So
I'm still doing it.
Well, so that I wouldn't have to take insurance, and I could see people for nothing. I love what I do. I save lives. There's nothing more.
100%.
You save one life, and it's to me it's miraculous.
So Mike and I have gotten a little taste of the joy, because I know why you got into psychology, but Mike and I have gotten a little taste with this show, and it's like something as simple today. I had a friend of mine. He fell off the wagon. And he knows I'm sober, and he knows I don't touch it. And he fell off the wagon. He's really hard on himself. He's only 4 months sober. And, 4 to 6 months is usually the testing period. I remember, I learned stuff. I did listen to you. I just didn't break balls when I saw you. He fell. And I said, look, okay, don't beat yourself up. We all fall. It's just how you pick yourself up.
Right.
And just talking him through that sticky spot. And this is not a guy that I know very well. This is a guy who reached out through the show. And I got to be honest with you, as much as he needed somebody to listen to him just to unleash his stuff, I said, well, your sobriety starts right now. Starts at this moment. You're at step 1. You're at ground zero. And when he got it, you could tell he was understanding what I was saying. The feeling of that, I don't think there's any drug in the world that can recreate that.
No.
I don't know. You were a child of the 60s, so you might say different.
I was kidding. We didn't even get to Woodstock yet.
By the way, so that's a good point, Mike. Dr. Stefanelli
The
is
esteemed Dr. Stefanelli, who works for the state PBA.
If you walk into Dr. Stefanelli's office in a frame right above the couch is a ticket to Woodstock. 3 tickets to Woodstock at $8 a piece. 6. And you know what? I had never really met anybody prior to you that had been to Woodstock. And knowing you as well as I know, you just, I don't know, maybe you fit the mold back then, but you didn't fit the mold to me, what I thought the type of person that would go to Woodstock. How did that all come about?
There was a big concert that was supposed to go up in New York State. And so some buddies of mine said, hey, let's go to that concert. It's going to be crazy. It's going to be wild.
Gasger's Farm.
And there was great groups. I mean, there were great, and they were every one of them was good. The best was Jimi Hendrix.
Yeah.
When he did the national anthem.
So you actually lived history and saw Jimi Hendrix do the national anthem. How close were you?
Oh, Jesus, I don't know, maybe 100 yards from between 75 and 100 yards from the stage. But you could walk around, sort of.
Yeah.
So if you think about the amount of yards that a Jets running back gets in a season, that's about how far you were from the stadium.
The stage.
The stage.
There was no stadium. There was just a stage.
And a field.
And a field, yeah, it was filled with people. There were people. I mean, you were shoulder to shoulder.
So let me set the stage on that one. Jimi Hendrix comes out. Obviously, he's a big star at that time.
Yes.
He comes out. You don't know what he's going to do, and he plays this melody on the electric guitar, unlike anything anybody's ever
Did you ever
heard.
hear it?
Oh, of course.
Thousands of times.
This was unlike anything anybody had ever heard come out of a guitar. It's almost like he was making the guitar sing. And what was the crowd's reaction? You're standing in the crowd and you're watching this. Was the gravity of that moment? Were you aware of that gravity of that moment when it was happening? Because you're watching this guy do something that nobody's ever done. You're watching history. You're a spectator to history.
That's part of American history right there.
Absolutely. What was the reaction of the crowd around you while he's playing that song?
Everybody was just cheering. You know, they were going wild.
Yeah.
And I remember this. Everybody was
Stoned out of their minds.
Naked.
I didn't see one fight there. There were 500,000 people.
Yeah.
Strong argument for the legalization of marijuana, I guess.
Well, they were smoking weed. When we got there, the fences were down. That's why I have my tickets.
Oh, really? Because you didn't even need them.
No, you didn't need tickets. People were just piling in, and the state troopers were around. People were smoking.
Yeah.
What were they going to do?
You know, there's certain tickets like that, and I understand why you have it. Like, I got a buddy of mine that's got a ticket for Elvis for August 22nd, 1977 in Nassau Coliseum. And obviously that concert didn't happen, and they offered to buy the ticket back and give him a refund, but who's going to give up that ticket? Elvis, the king is dead. Don't even ask him. I already know what you're going to ask him. Because how do you ask somebody with a vowel at the end of their name who's better, Elvis or Frank Sinatra?
They were better. They were both best in what they did.
Elvis was better.
Elvis was a rock and roll singer. Frank Sinatra was, he was a tenor.
But Elvis is better.
Sorry, Doc, we're going to have to hold you to an answer.
Got to break the tie.
Don't do the doctor thing on us.
Don't use your psychology skills on us.
We're going to put you
a damn answer.
We're going to put you right on the spot.
Want to repeat the question?
Elvis or Frank Sinatra?
Elvis.
Thank you. Finally, somebody who came to their senses, a doctor no less.
He smoked pot at Woodstock. You think he's all that smart?
But that was real pot. That wasn't this crap that they're manufacturing today. It was real pot. But so what's the craziest thing you saw at Woodstock? Besides people that didn't have any clothes on.
And we're sliding in the mud that was filled with piss.
Yeah, well, that was, I don't know. I just there was so many people there. And, there wasn't any arguments or fighting, because everybody was in La La Land.
Aside from Jimi Hendrix, who was your favorite that came up on stage? Sha-Na-Na.
No.
Janis Joplin.
Yeah.
Yeah, people don't know that. Sha-Na-Na actually played at Woodstock.
I liked Janis Joplin.
Janis Joplin.
Yeah, she was one of my favorites.
I know the Doors weren't allowed to play there because Jim Morrison had just been arrested in Miami or something like that, and they were afraid there was going to be an incident.
I saw them in Vermont.
The Doors?
Yeah. God. In this, I guess it was the late 60s.
It would have been great if they were able to come, but I mean,
I'm sure there was no fights at that one either.
No.
Yeah, Crosby, Stills, and Nash there, and Young. Was Young with them at that time?
I don't remember. I think it was Crosby, Stills, and Nash.
And that album still sits today as one of the most sold albums of all time, the Live from Woodstock.
That was a good album.
And then they tried to redo it in '99, and
couldn't do it.
You can't duplicate things like that.
Plus, it's a different breed of people.
Yeah.
It's a total different.
Mentality is totally different.
Those were the hippies, the peace loving.
Right.
And in this day and age, never happened.
But the hippies showed up in droves for that concert. But there was a lot of people. Like we have a friend whose father was connected, was driving his family to Woodstock because again he heard there was going to be this big concert there. They never were able to get there, but
the traffic was brutal.
They said people got there, but you were there for the full 3 days.
Yeah.
Where'd you sleep?
On the ground.
And where'd you go to the bathroom?
We had a tent.
On the ground.
Oh, well, everybody, the bathroom facilities were gone. You know, I mean, they were just filled to the brim.
Oh my gosh.
So but there were woods around, so people just walk into the woods and do what they had to do.
Well, they said most of the food and everything was gone too, right?
Everything was gone. You know,
So what did you do for food?
we brought some stuff, but we didn't eat.
What happened when you got the munchies?
Just got high, walked around, picked berries.
I heard there was some mushrooms that everybody could eat.
Yeah, really. Well, you don't eat those mushrooms.
And don't eat the brown acid, right?
Yeah, don't eat them.
Don't eat the brown acid.
Well, you know what? The hippies came in these buses, all painted up. They came in with bales of marijuana.
The little Volkswagen vans.
They had a bummer tent. They had a tent set up for people that were doing acid. I never did. I just smoked weed. But yeah, they had a bummer tent. They had a medical tent, and they had another tent. That was the other one.
Sex tent?
No.
No, I was.
You didn't need a tent, bro. People were getting laid next to you. Okay?
I was just gonna say that was called the lawn.
Not for nothing. Everybody so high. They really didn't shivagate, so they just jumped on each other. It was crazy.
I don't know. It's a foreign concept to me. Do you think it was a better way of life, or it was just a different way of life?
No, it wasn't a better way of life. I don't think. I mean, I wouldn't seek that to be my better part of life.
Or you think it was just kids being kids?
It was just young people having a good time, you know. They had clear heads.
They were releasing too.
You know,
the releasing
there was a lot of
stresses.
stress. Exactly, there was a lot of stress growing up. Then the war, that was pretty. It was pretty contagious. What went on because of that. You had that group that supported it, and then you had the group that didn't support it.
So it was kind of divided.
It was divided. Yeah.
So the funny thing is the more things change, the more they stay the same.
Pretty much.
Yeah, isn't that something?
Yeah.
Everybody thinks, because I hear that from older generations to younger generations, oh, we never did that stuff. And if you think really hard, yeah, you did.
Yeah, you did.
History repeats itself.
Yeah, you did.
So
All too often.
Well, they did different things, but they did the same shit way back when, in the 20s, when they used to have these marathon dances. They used to put, they made Coca-Cola with cocaine.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And if you put an aspirin in it, it kind of gave you a buzz. So that's what they used to do with these marathon dances. They would drink their Coca-Cola with the cocaine in it, and
Drew, get some
probably-
Coca-Cola in the studio, please.
they probably put a couple more things of, who knows. But that's what happened.
They came out with the movie Reefer Madness in the 30s. And then there was the Marijuana Tax Act of 1938, which made marijuana a very, very illegal thing. However, there was a lot of political stuff behind that because William Randolph. Here's the story I heard: William Randolph Hearst owned all the paper companies. Hemp was a front runner for the replacement of paper, and so he put a smear campaign on marijuana in order to squash that business.
That was the Marijuana Stamp Tax Act.
Yeah, 1938.
Wasn't that it?
Yeah. So I know my history a little bit. So you get out of Woodstock. How do you return to somewhat normal life after Woodstock?
Well, we did a lot of crazy shit when we were young, and that didn't affect your life later on.
So Woodstock wasn't
You matured.
Woodstock wasn't the craziest that you've been to.
Well, I would say it was. Yes, absolutely. And then after the concert was over, there's a river that runs right along the road. Everybody, and it was 90 some odd degrees. Everybody got naked and went in the river. You had 1,000 people minimum in the water swimming around naked. It was crazy. It was crazy.
So you when you were out of college at this point, were you practicing?
No.
No?
I was in grad school.
Grad school for what?
My PhD.
And was it also Villanova?
No, that was my master's. No.
Where'd you go?
I went to
University of Woodstock.
I got a government fellowship, and I had to go to Kane University for my master's in psych. And after that, I went to Villanova. No, I went to Villanova first. Sorry. And that's when I got my BA in psych. Then I went there, got an MA. Then I went to the New School for Social Research in New York City, got a master's in personality psychology. Got an EDS from, which is specialist in education, but that's not what it is. It was a program to do individual, marital, and family therapy. So I got my license, and then once I got my license to practice, I could bill insurance to pay for my doctorate.
Now, what was it like when you first got into a therapy situation? Was it what you expected? Because I'm sure you had to go through your clinical, so you sort of got a taste.
Yeah, you have a practicum you have to do.
Yeah.
And you have to get so many hours before you can even sit for the license.
So how does that work? Is that like a barber college where they give cheaper haircuts, so you go at a reduced rate, or you have to do it for free?
No, you do it for nothing.
Really?
Oh yeah.
So people who can't afford therapy, so you must have got some really, really messed up situations.
Well, and I got a lot of people from court referrals. These families get referred to court. The kids have problems. I used to run a group in Montclair High School. They had the 9 most incorrigibles in the school and said, "Would you come here and have a group with them?" And I used to do that every Tuesday.
And
that was just that I did on my own.
But now, when you were doing this marriage therapy or couples therapy, were you married at that point also?
No. I was divorced.
No, well, you were married at one point then.
yeah.
So
and then he went to Woodstock, and then the divorce happened.
All right, now let's get this straight, right?
Woodstock was before that.
Let's get this straight. Couple's married and they're having some problems, right? So they go to a marriage therapist who's divorced. What kind of advice could you give?
Don't do what I do.
Leave the bitch.
What kind of feeling did you get the first time you sat in a therapy situation?
Uncomfortable.
Yeah. Explain that one.
I was worried about what I was going to say, what I was going to do, but I had a practicum. I had 900,000 hours.
Wow.
That you had that I had to complete.
Did anything click while you're doing your practicum? Say like this is my path. Man, I'll give you. From day one. Because I went to college for teaching. I felt deeply moved to become a teacher.
Right.
And when I became a teacher, I was like, I don't think I want to I don't want to be a teacher.
I thought it was very powerful that you could turn somebody's life around. And then I went back and used to think about what Voltaire said. So, to get somebody back to health is as noble as to create. I mean, that's very powerful to me.
And that's really what led you down this road of helping others.
Pretty much. Yeah.
So
I would say.
So how there had to be some cases, some older cases, and obviously there's HIPAA things, so please don't give too much detail, that really affected you. You're a human being. And that's my curiosity about the world of therapy is therapists are human, and they listen to some of the most awful things that you could possibly hear, and then you have to digest that stuff and somehow dole out some sort of treatment plan for them where you're just like, what the fuck is going on here?
A suicide.
In front of you?
No.
One of your clients?
Yes. Was a young man. His father was capo, big time. And he didn't understand why he had to take medication to feel better, did not understand why I have to go to the gym to keep in good shape. And I tried to keep him on the medication, but he just decided he wasn't going to take it. After that, he said, I don't need to come talk to somebody to get better. I said, okay, but I don't suggest you do that. And I called him, tried to stay on top of him, but his brother called me and said so-and-so died. Killed him, he took pills that killed himself. So I was a hard one to get by. Still is.
I'm sure.
You feel like you let him down, or you feel like you lost him?
Yeah, I do. I feel that every time a police officer gets killed, somebody I didn't get to. So
if you could have just made one more phone call.
Yeah.
You know, that's where if I could have made one more phone call, if I wasn't, you know, I had to go grocery shopping.
Yep.
Well, life is coulda, shoulda, wouldas.
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much.
You know, that's really what it comes down to.
It's a very it's difficult at times, but it's very really it's in it's just so powerful.
Did it ever make you second guess yourself?
Yeah, I've done that, but I do that a lot.
Like, do I really want to keep doing this?
Yeah, and it's never that I really did second guess myself.
No, because you know there's too much good you still have to do.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So you're moving along in your career.
Mm-hmm.
You ever come across any dangerous situations in practice?
Yeah.
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 Especially, you know, dealing with police officers is a whole different animal. But you're dealing with people at their emotional breaking point often.
Mm-hmm.
Daily.
Yeah. I was threatened once
Why?
because he didn't feel that he was getting anything from his treatment.
So how did Kevin threaten you then?
We weren't not going to, we weren't going to throw that out there.
And here you have the script for Analyze This.
Yeah.
I will tell you a story about that. One of my friends needed somebody in his crew. Okay, and he had a problem. So he said, "I got this guy. You got to take care of him." I said, "Okay."
Yeah. You don't say no to that.
So he sent him to me, and he was with me for 2 years. I had him on medication, cocaine over here, booze over here. He was doing okay. He was with me 2 years. After 2 years, I said, "So-and-so, it's time. You need to, be free of me. You don't need me anymore. You've got it pretty much under control." So when he left, he said to me, "Doc, you're really good. You're good. Anything, anytime, anywhere. You understand? I'm your insurance company. I'm your insurance policy."
Okay, now we're gonna speak to Doc a little softer now.
Yeah, no kidding.
He's got backing. You're good. You're good.
You, with the pinky out a little bit and the ring on there. Yeah, exactly.
Well, there were two things I aspired for. They were on my there were a few things on my bucket list, but one was a solid gold Rolex, which I have. I have a diamond ring. I always wanted a diamond pinky ring. So when my mother passed away, God rest her soul, I took her ring and I made a ring for myself, so she's always with me.
Is that why we have to kiss the ring when we come into?
Yeah, but you're not supposed to say that.
Well, I knew something was up when I had to burn a saint in my hand and move it side to side.
Wait a minute.
We're going to take our shoes off at the door.
How about when I gave you the 45?
Yeah, I was going to bring that up.
All right, so
I was going to say dangerous situations.
I
wanted to see his reaction to it. It was very important to me.
I want to talk about that a little bit later because that was a very, very impactful moment in my life. It was both horrifying, terrifying, depressing. There's a lot that goes into it,
and helpful.
You get into the police world. Your first police client, you said you had one or two of them before Tony Wieners came in and offered you this position in the Belleville Police Department. What did you find different about police officers, about treating police officers?
I didn't have to wear a shirt and tie, and I could say fuck.
Yeah.
That might be the best answer I ever heard in my life. But did you find them easier or more difficult to talk to? Because in many ways we're easier to talk to, but in a lot of ways we're really difficult.
You know this to be a fact. When a cop trusts you, you can
do whatever you want.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
And that's really how you get success in the business working with cops.
Well, but
it's building up that trust too. So like the first time the cop comes in there.
And you'll excuse me, but cops are like washerwomen with balls. Okay? So they chatter. And that's been my success. 20 years, yeah.
Well, you become the guy. Every cop has the guy. You need new tires? Go see my guy. You need mental health? You go see my guy.
Right.
And that's what I try to explain to people when they're marketing specifically to police officers. We've had some sponsors here, and the reason they come in and they want to market to police officers. Well, you need to become the guy, a guy they can trust, that it's not going to screw them, that's not going to take their money, that's going to do the job that they're getting paid to do, and they're going to do it proficiently and do it well. And now, Dr. Steph, you are the guy. So you get involved in this police work, and you are the police guy. I mean, you're the cop doc. That's pretty much. We used to call you something different, but but what we're going to do, Doc, is we're coming to the end of this. I want to break this up into two parts because your story, the second part of this, relates to Mike and I in such a way, because we really didn't even touch the impact that you've had on us. And I want to get into that in the second part of this episode, because I don't think you realize what you've done for him and I, and where you're sitting right now, which, you know, you're in Pompton Plains, New Jersey. But this show, what we do right now, is all because of you.
100%.
So we're going to ask you to come back next week, and we're going to record the second part of this.
What day is it?
What day is it? Wednesday.
Next week.
Next
Wednesday?
Wednesday. Don't worry, we'll make it work. We'll get you a chauffeur.
Okay.
And that's going to do it for this episode, part one of the Suffering of Cop Doc with Dr. Eugene Stefanelli. And let's think about all the stuff that we learned here. Respect and loyalty is taught. Restoring health is more important than creation. Power is turning somebody's life away, or turning somebody's life around, and become the guy. So that's going to do it for this episode. Don't forget to go to popple.com, put in the code TSP20 for 20% off your digital business card, and follow us on all social media. That's Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, OnlyFans. Follow Mike at Mike_Failace. Follow me at Real Kevin Donaldson. And, of course, follow the Suffering Podcast. We will see you on the next episode.